massively. So Casa Loma's taxes back then in 1914 were only $600 a year, which, you know, we say that now, only $600 a year. I mean, most people, that was the price of a house in 1911, right? In 1914, $600, maybe $1,000. But they decided the city to raise the property tax from $600 a year to $1,000 a month. So that was $12,000 a year in property tax. And he was already experiencing financial difficulties, and he started to auction off a lot of the art that he had, a lot of the furnishings that he had, and they ended up living in the castle only until about 1923. Now, I went back and I looked at the auction items from the time period that went up. There were Louis the 14th desks in that auction. That went for, you know, $500 and $600 in the 1920s. Just, you know, insane amounts of wealth were packed into Casa Loma. It has a beautiful conservatory inside, big glass conservatory.
It sure does.
It's opulent.
It's gorgeous.
At the time, when you go to Mrs. Palat's private rooms, they were like apartments, really. You know, so when you think about a bedroom today, you know, we go to our house, we go to our bedroom. It's our bedroom, but back then, it was more of an apartment. So Mrs. Palat's apartment, per se, when you walk in, she had her bedchamber area. There was a sitting room area. There was a dressing area. Her bathroom was massive and has a shower that kind of reminds me a bit of a frightening gas chamber. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do, yeah.
With the pipes and the weird. It was, and of course, they had hot water from their boiler system. The castle was heated with boilers and hot water. So but the shower is this great big, tall, round, cylindrical shower that you would walk into, and it's filled with these pipes that ring it, and there's little holes in the pipes at sort of waist level up, and then there's a shower head above too. So you would have had, you know, now like we have these fancy showers, but back then, and that would have been an incredibly fancy shower. Everything was tiled. It was just, you know, very opulent, right? I mean, this is the upper echelon of wealth. This is something you would expect royalty to be living in. Literally, it was that opulent, and it had that many things. It's really a really interesting place in terms of the architecture. They had stonemasons from Scotland come to help build the castle itself. You know, just yeah. I mean, but the interesting thing about the castle itself too is, you know, and we're going to get to talking about the ghosts, is that the only people that ever lived in it were the Palats. So after Henry Platt essentially had to liquidate everything, you know, investors operated it they tried to operate it as a luxury hotel during Prohibition. It was sort of a night spot, a very popular night spot for wealthy Americans. And, you know, but it didn't last. It really only lasted for maybe a year or two, and that was it. And then again in 1924, it was seized for unpaid taxes, and the building was left vacant until the 1930s. And then, funny enough, I used to work for CFRB, and CFRB broadcaster Claire Wallace spent a night at Casa Loma to gather material for a ghost story. And this is in the 1930s, right? And so she spent time there to gather a story up about ghosts and supernatural phenomena. And she later broadcasted an appeal to save the building from demolition. They were going to tear it down in the 1930s.
Can you imagine that? All that history just gone just like that. What a shame.
Well, yeah, I mean, just the opulence of it. So eventually it went to the Kiwanis Club, and the Kiwanis Club ran it up until, I'm going to say, it had to have been at least 2000 and I worked there. When did I work there? 2000 and I guess I was there in about 2001, 2002. Now Kiwanis had it. I'm just looking here to see. They actually had it till 2011.
Wow.
So, yep. So they opened it up, and there was still a Palat alive. Apparently, Trelawney Howell is a great grandniece of Palat, and she started to campaign for an open tender lease process in 2005. And the organization disputed her relationship with Palat in 2010. So there was a 2006 advisory committee that was led, and with subsequent reports. Anyways, it ended up that the city took over after 74 years. I know they renewed it with Kiwanis, but now the city has it. So the city of Toronto. So that's kind of what I want to sort of talk about there, because a lot changed when the city of Toronto had it. So when it was the Kiwanis, we were able, they had all these great summer programs for kids and summer camps, and people that I know, like the Knights of Valor, would go in there. So the guys that do the jousting and they would go in the summer, and they would offer night camps for kids, right? So my kids attended those and loved them. So they had archery and all these kinds of different things that Knights would have participated in, and it was open for boys or girls. It didn't matter. And I used to play Queen Elizabeth I at the castle often, and interact with the kids. And it was great fun, because I was playing Lizzie, sort of teleported into the 21st century.
Yes.
So I would often ask the kids, what is this? And, we'd go into and see the old automobiles and things like that. And, I'd get the kids to explain to me what they were, in terms that, if I was Lizzie the Oneth, I would understand, what they were talking about. But it was great fun. And then, like I say, the city has taken it over. Apparently there's also a restaurant in there now called Blue Blood Steakhouse. I have never been. I have not been. Yeah,
I'm going to go.
It opened its doors.
That's going on my bucket list. I don't know when. I don't care when. I have to go and visit. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, well, so I've not been to the restaurant.
That steakhouse they opened, you don't want my opinion on that.
Did you go?
No,
it looks
I was
really
there
expensive.
before it became the steakhouse, but they've built it in what was known as the Oak Room.
Oh, it's the Oak Room, the old original, yeah.
And the Oak Room was, from what I noticed being there, is the most beautiful room in the entire place.
Right.
And I can't believe they've turned it into a restaurant.
Yeah.
A very
really?
first-class restaurant, but it's still been turned into a restaurant, and it's like, oh my gosh, are you absolutely kidding me? And I have not seen pictures, and I'm sure they've preserved the beauty of the room, but they took it from basically a very beautiful living room type area, and they turned it into a steak restaurant. Really?
I know. I know.
I just shake my head at it.
What's that, Rachel?
Is it considered the Oak Room?
The Oak Room, yes.
It's got a lot of dark wood and
It's very beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I mean, when we were there, and when I was doing the summer programming and things with the kids, that was the room that all the kids they would all come in, and we would, meet them in that space, because it's a nice big, and you could close it off, you could close the doors. It was very private. It's a very large space. I think originally part of it was a study, and it would have been what we call a double sitting room. So men could sit on the one side with the fireplace and the books and the library, and you could close the doors. You could pull the slotted doors between the middle, and the ladies could sit on the other side, right? And you could, and so, I mean, it's very opulent. It's very beautiful. But, I mean, yes, a lot of things have changed over the years, and, they're still grasping at straws for, there's a lot of weddings and things that go on there. But I think that for the most part, they've tried to, as much as possible, make it a viable location to remain open. And I think that that's sort of what we have to take into consideration, that to run this building is astronomically expensive in today's market, and to the upkeep and the maintenance on those original beautiful features. Because, you know, after so many years, things like leaded windows and that, they do tend to start to go, they can only take so much summer heat and so much winter cold before the lead starts to let go and sag, and, you know, panes of glass start to shift and fall out, and these things. And so there's very few craftspeople anymore too left to be able to maintain these kinds of homes, right? This is highly skilled requirements of, you know, maintenance on these. This is not a, you know, slap and dab subdivision kind of contractor, right? These are really, you know, these places need people with skill. But it is a beautiful building. And that being said, of course, it was closed down due to the pandemic. I understand now, when I was a kid, and this is how I remember Casa Loma as a child, when I was a little kid, and we're talking in the late 1960s, my mom used to take my brother and I there. There was something there called Fairyland. And Fairyland was always done around Christmas time. And it was in the Great Hall when you first, you know, entered, and there was this it's a huge Great Hall, and in the Oak Room and in the conservatory, and that they used to have all of these, it was like you were walking through a storybook. So I remember a Humpty Dumpty up on a wall and all of these kinds of things, and they made it very, you know, with twinkly lights, and it was all very kind of magical, and you're in this castle, so much more. And then I don't know when that stopped. I'm going to guess it was probably sometime in the 70s. And then they tried to bring it back. And I know now that they're doing something with Halloween. Apparently they deck the place out.
The Halloween attraction now, yeah.
Yeah, Halloween stuff. And I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, for me, it's kind of kitschy. But I guess if it's injecting cash into the building to keep it open, and it's not, you know, they're not changing the face of the building. These are all just temporary installations that, you know, something has to something has to keep it open, right?
I understand that, but again, the Halloween thing is, again, something that irks me a little bit.
Yeah.
That I understand why they do it, and the location, you know, here you are, you're at a castle. I mean, it's the perfect location to do something like that. But for me, I feel it insults the history of the building itself when you turn it into a Halloween attraction.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like I say, the Fairyland, you know, that kind of thing too. You know, people probably thought, oh, it's kind of tacky and whatnot. But I guess it's, you know, trying to keep it open. I haven't been to the Halloween thing. I'm not sure that I would spend the money to go and see a lot of the same, you know, Halloween stuff that you can see at Home Depot. You know, I mean, a lot of it's just this animatronic Halloween stuff, right? Yeah, well, no, it's true. Like, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything in there that is going to be, you know, earth-shatteringly spectacular. But again, you know, tourism is really what keeps this place going. So this year is going to be very difficult for it. But let's talk about the building itself, because I want to talk about the rooms, and then we'll start to talk about the ghosts and the purported ghosts. And I can tell you what I've heard and seen there in my time being there. And then we can look at what other people have, you know, sort of said or claimed, or, you know, because at the end of the day, everyone's experience is different, or, you know, similar, yet they see it in their own way. So just for Rachel, since you looked at it online, I'm just going to sort of go on a limb and say, okay, so we have the Oak Room. We described that. And I'm just quickly going to go through the descriptions. So the Oak Room, it was originally called Napoleon's Drawing Room, and it was the most decorated room in the house. It was used for all formal occasions, and it's encased in wood panels in the style of what they call Grinling Gibbons,